He says at the rate we are spending, no token middle-class tax cut as he sees it is going to make things better. In fact, Stephen says it's going to make things worse. Stephen, the co-author of The End of Prosperity. And if he's right, this could be the beginning of new problems. What do you mean, Stephen?
Hi, Neil. Well, first of all, we shouldn't even talk about this $1 trillion spending package as a stimulus. I think we should call it a de-stimulus bill, because I come from the old school of economics, which says that when the government spends money and it either has to print dollars or go into debt to finance that spending, that has a negative effect on the economy that I think has a more negative effect than the positive effect from the jobs that are created. Now, on the
but to be fair, now I agree with you, but to be fair, there is an argument that short-term at least, it has this sort of stimulative effect. Doesn't last long, sort of like a nicotine fit or something I would relate to a sugar high. But that's it. And then you've got problems. What do you make of that?
Well put. And in fact, we saw that effect this year, Neil. Remember, exactly a year ago, we did the tax rebate checks, and they went out in May and June and July of last year. And what happened? We did see a little bounce in the economy, a little spurt, that sugar fix, and then the economy just nosedived again. And I think that's what's going to happen if we do this big stimulus. We will get a bump up in the economy in the first few months, and then it'll tumble right back down.
But what about the middle-class tax cut? Do you think that at $300 billion plus, it still isn't enough, or it's not a tax cut? What do you say it is?
Well, first of all, I don't like the plan, because I think that what you're doing is you're basically just returning to the idea of essentially a form of tax rebate checks. And we did that twice under the Bush administration. Neither time did it really get businesses moving again, hiring workers again. You know, it's interesting, you talked about the capital gains and dividend tax cut with Congressman Meeks. That, in the last 8 years, was the one stimulus plan that actually did create business spending and did create jobs. If I were devising an economic stimulus plan, Neil, I'd announce immediately we're going to make those tax cuts permanent, never let them expire.
All right, then you'd have to make the argument the reason why Wall Street's selling off is on fear that those tax cuts are going away, and that would be a difficult argument, right?
Well, I think that's part of the reason. I think part of the reason the market is down, too. I think the market doesn't want to see the government go into an enormous amount of debt. We're already seeing a record amount of printing of dollars. You know, I have a friend at the Treasury Department who literally says the only thing that can slow them down from printing money right now is if they run out of ink. So we've got a record amount of debt, a record amount of printing of dollars, and to say, well, all we have to do is spend another $1 trillion, I just don't see that as a real economic stimulus. You know, let's go back to the early 1980s, Neil. Ronald Reagan took office in a very much a similar economic crisis in the early 1980s, and we didn't increase government spending. We actually took a knife to the budget, got the budget under control, and did tax cuts. I think that's the way to go.
But tax cuts created revenue, you're quite right, but we ended up spending the revenue and then some. And that's the dirty little problem with this stuff, right?
Well, that's right. And Neil, the other dirty little secret is, for all the talk about change, a new economic direction, when you think about it, the Obama plan is more spending and more tax rebates. Well, that's what George Bush has done for the last few years, more spending and more tax rebates.
Very good point. Stephen Moore, the man who single-handedly wrote a book to create an economic crisis and then sell that book very well. The End of Prosperity is a book. Stephen Moore, the author. Very good seeing you, my friend. Thank you very much.
Happy.